Good evening. Welcome to the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert here on the CTM News Network, the voice of truth. Well, we have a special guest tonight, and I'm going to begin by telling you a little bit about him. But he's really going to enlighten us. A lot of times you don't hear some of the things that he's going to be talking about in the mainstream media. Matter of fact, you hardly ever hear it. But especially if anything that President Donald J. Trump was behind. So we're going to be discussing a little bit about the Abraham Accord. The gentleman I have on tonight is Bryan Leib. He's a former GOP congressional candidate for Congress, a congressional candidate, yeah. Bryan Leib is an American conservative political commentator and activist. Leib served as the national director for Americans Against Anti-Semitism and program director of Israeli American Council. He was the Republican nominee for Pennsylvania's Philadelphia 3rd Congressional District in 2018. Wow. That's something. And he also has something to do with an organization I'm asking about because I didn't see a lot of information on this. Organization called Hayam, I believe it's called Hayam. His birthday is the same day as a good friend of mine. But I want to go ahead right now and say shalom and welcome Bryan Leib. How are you today?
David, I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here, sir, and I appreciate you taking the time with me to come on and discuss a few issues. I know we're a little pressed for time, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time with my little over things. I kind of like to talk a lot. I don't want to talk too much. Okay, first of all, I have to ask you this. I have to touch on this because you were at one time a congressional candidate for Pennsylvania. What do you think about the issues that have been going on in the Pennsylvania legislature here recently? And before I move on with that, I also wanted to talk about, you can address this through, you wrote an article in November. I should have wrote down the publication, but you wrote an article about the Pennsylvania Supreme Court circumventing state election laws. You mentioned it anyway in an article. So what do you think about that issue there with the legislature there?
You know, David, there's no other way to say it other than to say the actions that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court took in the middle of September were unconstitutional. Yeah. They did not have any legal authority to change state election law, and they went ahead and did it anyway with the cover of the governor, who's a Democrat, Governor Tom Wolf. And this is nothing new to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. You know, they 2 years ago, actually, when I ran for Congress, they redrew the congressional maps. Again, you know, they have no legal precedent to redraw congressional maps or to rewrite state election law. That's for the state legislature. So in the most simplest format or most simplest, answer, what they did is unconstitutional. And I'm very, very surprised that the Supreme Court did not take up the case.
Yeah, I'm surprised as well. I'm very upset really with the Supreme Court of these different states, but I'm even more upset sometimes with the U.S. Supreme Court because people's rights are being violated across the nation. Our constitutional laws are being violated, our First Amendment rights, and in some areas our Second Amendment rights. And they're just allowing this to go on. I need to do some research. Maybe you might know something about it, but I don't know anything about it. But I would think that they would have some type of ability to go into these areas and say, look, hey, you're breaking constitutional law, locking down your citizens and refusing them to give them the freedom that this nation afforded them with our First Amendment. So let's move on. I'm going to keep talking about it. Don't shut up right now. But anyway, talking about President Trump. President Trump has a love for the Jewish people as well as I do. So, and I believe that this is probably he's probably the number one president that has come out and fought for our religious freedoms in this country, and even to advance them even further. So how do you feel about that? Do you see that with him also?
Yeah, David, it's a good point. I mean, and President Trump has done more in 4 years than the last four presidents combined when it comes to standing with the state of Israel and the Jewish community here in America, around the world, and in Israel. Let's not forget it was President Trump that took decisive action to sign an executive order last year combating anti-Semitism on college campuses.
Yes.
No other president has ever taken unilateral action like that. And what President Trump has done in the last 4 years is nothing short of remarkable. But David, it has to be brought up that President Trump, well, before becoming the president, Donald Trump enjoyed a very good relationship, with a lot of individuals in the Jewish community here in America
Yes.
and in Israel. He's been supporting Jewish causes and Jewish nonprofits, again, here in America and in Israel for his
Yes.
entire life. And in the mid '80s, I believe he received the Jewish National Fund Tree of Life annual award, one of the highest honors the Jewish National Fund gives. So there has been no greater friend to the Jewish community here in America, around the world, and in Israel than President Trump. And he needs to be applauded for what he's done. I can understand if people don't like the way he tweets and they don't like the way he talks and these things, but at the end of the day, when you look at, we have a word, in Hebrew or Yiddish called tachlis, bottom line, when you look at the tachlis of what President Trump has done, no president has come anywhere close to what he's done for the state of Israel.
Amen to that. That is more. I'm glad I have you on here today because I'm finding out information I never even knew about President Trump. I knew that President Trump had a lot of things that he has done. Of course, he's been nominated for 5 Nobel Peace Prizes. Of course, nobody talks about him, but and he's also very respected among certain Christian leaders also as well in this country. He's done a lot to protect our rights and our religious freedoms in this nation. And you can see that the Democrat Party has done a lot to stop and cause problems with our relationship in this country as far as Jews, Christians, whatever religion or faith there is. And it amazes me that a lot of this stuff that's still going on right now, this hatred that's going on for the Judeo-Christian values of this nation, which have been here since the beginning. A lot of people don't know this, and I'll share this with you. I don't even know if you know it. You might know it, but a lot of people don't know that the Jewish people are one of the biggest contributors. Not to say Columbus was a perfect man, but the Jewish people were one of the biggest contributors to Columbus's journey to the Americas. They were sending Columbus here to make room and place for them as well. And it's a part of history, but of course you don't hear much about that. But the Jewish people were behind financially Columbus getting here to America. So I want to borrow one other thing before I move on this thing of religion and religious freedom. And then we're going to move on. I want to talk a little bit about this Abraham Accord that just occurred.
Of course.
Recently in news, secular Democrats have approached supposed, or I don't know what you want to call them, Biden, the suggested president-elect, because we don't really, it's not even final yet, but they're pushing it forward. But but the supporters of this President-elect Biden, who's supposedly coming into office, one of the groups called America PAC, one thing they did was they told, I guess Biden, not to say Biden, they told Biden that they wanted the Trump supporters, the Christian nationalists, they call them, to be considered a national security threat. This is Democrats in Congress. They want Christians that are following President Trump and the movement that's going on right now considered a national security threat. And you know what happens when you are considered a national security threat. You're blocked from this, you're blocked from that. You can't travel. You got to be investigated on everything. And this is what they want. This whole thing, to me, as far as what I can see, is put together to try to destroy the religion in this country. They don't have any time. This secular Democrats, They didn't want to mention their names, and they hide that. But they want to get rid of any religion because they think it's all a myth. They don't believe in God. They think, well, it's all a myth. And when it comes up against this country, it's a national threat. They want their, and I know, according to Scripture and according to in the Pentateuch, it is going to happen. There's going to be a time where they're going to try to just get rid of our faith altogether. Now, got two other things I want to mention here. And after I hear your response on this, are you aware of this organization at all? The
No, I'm
American
not.
PAC.
First I'm hearing of this organization.
Wow. So I mean, it was amazing. I just read this recently in the news, and I was just shocked because they also want us to take "In God We Trust" off of anything dealing with this country. They don't want "In God We Trust" because it offends people and it's not inclusive of everybody. Give me a break. Anyway, another thing I wanted to ask you now. I read something in your reading about this guy Seth Rogen. Now I'm not real crazy about Seth either. So what are the Jewish people's feelings about Seth Rogen? And we know he's a Hollywood boy, but what is it that you were saying that it would be better? He's just been harmful to the people, the Jewish people.
Yeah, well, Seth went on a podcast and started talking about how in today's world, it's Israel doesn't have to, still receive the type of support that they receive, from the Jews in America. And he just, it's kind of a typical line here from a lot of Jewish liberals. They don't understand or they don't recognize why it's still important in today's world for Jews in America to be supporting the state of Israel. They don't understand why it's important to push back against Representative Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar so many others that speak that just they spew venom out of their mouths towards the state of Israel. And listen, the BDS movement, by the way, only boycotts one country, Israel. If the BDS movement started boycotting other countries, then yeah, we could all say that the BDS movement isn't anti-Semitic, but at the end of the day, when the BDS movement targets one nation in the world, and that's the only Jewish majority nation in the world, it's purely anti-Semitic. So we have to push back and we have to call it out and we have to condemn it. And back to your point, with regards to religious freedom, I mean, religious freedom is 100% under attack in this country and has been for a while now. And you can see what's been happening here in the state of New York. With Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio and the things and actions that they have taken that have specifically singled out the Orthodox Jewish community here in the state of New York. Conservative voices need to push back. We need to use every tool in our toolbox to push back against what's happening.
Yeah, I'm as an American citizen. I've been in this country, of course, all my life, and it's been 60 years or so. But I just feel bad because I know, and I'm hoping it doesn't go this direction. But if they keep pushing like this toward the conservatives, they're going to find out, and they're finding out already. They had Antifa, BLM, and all this other garbage that were going on. There were Marxist organizations going on out here. But you see, this is why these Democrats, these secular Democrats, are so afraid, because you see that the right is far bigger than the left in this country. We stand up for what we believe. Millions of people have come out to support President Trump. And I will warn also some of those people, hey, look, guys, those people that are against the conservative voices in this country, remember, we stand for the First Amendment rights and the Second Amendment rights, especially the right to keep and bear arms. See, they want to take our weapons away because they want to turn us into a communist nation where they have all the control, all the weapons and everything else, and they can attack us and do whatever they want to us, and we can't defend our families and our own lives. Well, let me move on. I don't want to stay on that one because I'll start getting into the radical.
You probably need a whole hour to talk about that.
Yeah, and then what this new thing they got, the far right. How far right can you go? How far right? Right is right. you can't go too far right. You either right or you're wrong. So
Yeah,
this,
and back to your point too, David, about Antifa and BLM,
yeah.
they're Antifa is 100% a domestic terrorist organization,
Oh yes.
who would like for nothing more than this country to burn to the ground. We've seen what's been happening
Yes.
in our cities all throughout the country and the mayhem that they've been causing. And then you have, what I thought for a while were moderate Democrats like Congressman Jerry Nadler, who now we're
Mm,
finding out is not so moderate. But you have a
yeah.
guy like Jerry Nadler saying, who is Antifa? Is it even a real organization? Yes,
Who's a diva?
Congressman Nadler. Antifa is a real organization. They're the ones that are responsible for putting bricks in the middle of cities during protests. So, yeah, I'd say Antifa is a pretty real organization.
Yeah, and also, pulling up trucks of weapons to fight again. I don't know. I don't want to
Horrible.
see this country get into a civil war, but we need to get some things straightened out in this country. Else, we are going to be moving toward a civil war. There's no other way. I'm getting stuff in the mail right now trying to tell me that I never was a weapon carrier. They want me to carry weapons, get a gun, get ready to go, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for that. But anyway, let's move on. I'm going to mention something, and then I want you to kind of tell us about the Abraham Accord, because the mainstream media, fake news media, have been keeping silent on all the activities that have been going on with the Abraham Accord, of course, because President Donald J. Trump was one of the main figures that brought these countries together. What we're talking about right now is an advisor from, I don't know if you heard about this, an advisor from Prime Minister Imran Khan visited Tel Aviv in November using his British passport to seek normalization between Pakistan and Israel. Are you familiar with that situation? It's like they're trying
Yeah,
to
David, I
get,
am.
yeah,
So
go ahead.
yeah, so we've heard the news, that there was a delegation from Pakistan that visited Tel Aviv a couple weeks ago, and it's truly remarkable. I mean, what continues to happen, these are,
Yes.
it's worth noting, these are relationships and friendships that Israel and their leaders and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have been working on and building for a long, long time now. And what's happened with the signing of the Abraham Accords, which was the baby and brainchild of our President Donald Trump, it brought these relationships out of the darkness and into the light. President Trump provided the runway for these relationships to take off so the whole world can see. And what we're seeing is nothing short of remarkable. I mean, the most recent peace deal that's come from the Abraham Accords is now with Israel and Morocco. And what I find to be just
Wow.
truly remarkable is a first ever, and I don't know if you've heard about this yet, but
No, I haven't.
Morocco will be mandating onto their public education system Jewish studies
All right.
of history and culture of the Jewish people. That's an Arab
Wow.
country, David, mandating Jewish
Yeah.
studies in their country
I'll
that
give my
never
hand.
would
All
have happened if
right.
it wasn't for Abraham Accords. That's
Yes.
fantastic. That will
Yeah.
that will that will shift what's happening in the region for decades to come.
Wow. Yes, that thing it's a major thing, and I am with you on the. I remember the Israeli leaders in the past, and you had mentioned in one of your things that you feel that Benjamin Netanyahu made Israel much stronger than it was previously. What do you see in that with Netanyahu that's different from the other leaders, at least the leader that came before him?
There's really no one quite like Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. When you look
Yeah.
around at leaders in Israel and also you look at leaders around the world, Benjamin Netanyahu has a unique ability to build relationships with anyone. He's a very personable individual, and he has been flying all around the world for years now, building relationships with various countries. And now Israel enjoys very strong relationships, not just with us, with the United States of America, but with almost every nation you could possibly think of: India,
Yes.
Brazil, Japan, China, anyone you could possibly think of. Israel is a major player on the world scale, and they've certainly over the last couple of years with President Trump have become an even bigger player throughout the world. But I think Benjamin Netanyahu also deserves a tremendous amount of accolade for the work that he's done for the Jewish people and for the Jewish nation. I don't think there's ever going to be another prime minister quite like Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yes, I agree with you. Well, once again, we're going to take a short break right now. We will be right back with you here on the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert and our guest, Bryan Leib.
Did you know Kelly Loeffler was ranked the most conservative senator in America?
Yep, she's more conservative than Attila the Hun.
Fight China. Got it. Attack big government.
Yeah. Eliminate the liberal scribes.
More conservative than Attila the Hun.
Uh-oh.
Kelly Loeffler, 100% Trump voting record.
I'm Kelly Loeffler. I approve this message.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert here on the CTM News Network, the Voice of Truth. We are speaking with Bryan Leib, former congressional candidate in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He is also the head, was also, I don't know if he still is, the director of Americans Against Anti-Semitism. Bryan, I'm going to ask you one last question. And this last question, I want to hear your heart. I really want to hear your heart for the Jewish people, for the things that are going on with the Abraham Accord, and for what direction do we need to go in this country of America to improve relations with Israel and even with the Arab nations. So if you can share your viewpoint, and then we'll let you go. Go ahead, sir.
Sure, David. Thanks again for having me on and having this opportunity to speak to your audience. The Abraham Accords, as we just touched on, they're changing the game in the Middle East, and they're going to change. It's going to change the game for decades to come. The fact that you have Jews and Arabs that are now bringing their friendships and relationships out from the darkness and into the light for the world to see will just be the biggest game changer, and I think it will definitely be one of President Trump's crowning achievements. My message to the Jewish community and other individuals that are watching in terms of Israel and what we can do to grow our relationship is, we, as much as the Republican Party has certainly been tremendous friends to the state of Israel, we need to continue to build bridges with moderate Democrats who understand the importance of having a strong relationship. The U.S.-Israel alliance must be bipartisan in nature, and we must do everything that we can to stand with our greatest ally in the Middle East. It makes them safe, it makes us safe, it makes Americans all around the world safe. So we need to continue standing strong, not just with the political leaders of Israel, but with the people and land of Israel. And I think that's something that Jews here in America have done a very good job at. There's a lot of people out there that will say that Jews in America are disconnected from Israel. And I'm sorry, that couldn't be any farther from the truth. The Jewish people here in America strongly support the state of Israel. They strongly support the people in the land of Israel. And they're going to continue doing that. So, David, thanks again for letting me be on the show today. And I hope you have a good weekend.
Well, I thank you also, Bryan, for joining us here. And I do hope you'll come back and visit with us again. And if you hang on a few minutes, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with you here on the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert, here on the CTM News Network, the Voice of Truth.
It's hard to believe that my opponents have been in office for 63 years. I've spent my life learning how to deal with large, complex situations like I found at Reebok and Dollar General. If these politicians had any understanding of the free enterprise system and knew how to make a difference, wouldn't they have done it already? Help me change the childish behavior up there. If we want different results in Washington, we have to send a different type of person to Washington. I'm David Perdue. I approve this message.
Welcome back. You're watching the Black Conservative Voice with David Colbert here on the CTM News Network. Boy, that was really an exciting interview we just had with Bryan Leib. He is a former GOP congressional candidate, and we spoke about a lot of things and some stuff I didn't even know about. And even that our president has been working with the Jewish community for years, and he is a big supporter, and he has received even accolades, awards from the organization. So if you have friends that are Jewish, tell them, they need to get out and support their groups. And those who are not supporting President Trump, but I know we have Jews for Trump out there, Jewish voice for Trump, which our past guest was a part of. We're going to speak a little bit here about a situation that just happened, and it was put into the New York Times. It was in reference to a quote-unquote Dr. Jill Biden. About 6 days ago, there was an op-ed done by a gentleman by the name of Joseph Epstein, published in his blog or whatever, and he called Dr. Biden, as she likes to be called, as kiddo, and offered for advice on what may seem like a small but not an unimportant matter, as to proclaim Michael Levison of the New York Times. Any chance you might drop the doctor? This is what he's asking. Any chance you might drop the doctor from your name? He wrote, Dr. Jill Biden sounds and feels fraudulent, not to say a touch comic. He says she needs to carry a stethoscope. Now, he was making jokes about her, true. Of course, they want to tout her as a new first lady, which has not been finally decided. Anyway, here we go. So what I say is she is a PhD in education. She has no medical, she's not a medical doctor. If she was a medical doctor, she would not even allow her husband to be out running for anything. The man has dementia or Alzheimer's. We're not absolutely sure, but there's definitely something emotionally, mentally wrong with this supposed President-elect Joe Biden. He is suffering from dementia or something else to that nature. Now, just to mention, the coronavirus stimulus package is supposedly will pass tonight sometime before midnight. I'm not sure why. I guess because they got to go on vacation. They're going to pose, and what is said is they're going to have a possible $600 stimulus checks going to individual Americans to help out or whatever. There's a lot of things going on, people. A lot of things going on, and I'll probably will be talking about some of these things on my Monday program. But here we have, once again, the Democrats touting Russia disinformation in this thing involving SolarWinds hack. It was a hack on SolarWinds, which involved the Microsoft, surprise, surprise, Bill Gates organization or former organization, U.S. Energy Department implicated in SolarWinds. The two things, the Energy Department, they don't like what President Trump did, making us an energy independent nation anyway. So they send this attack up. Now, I'm going to close with this because I don't want to go on too long, but I need to mention this. This happened actually earlier today where Senator Ron Johnson, he went off, people. He went off. He lit into Senator Peters and on this Democrat disinformation, Russian garbage that they're always spewing out. And he said this is coming from the other side of the aisle, which means the Democrat Party. Peters accused Senator Johnson and Senator Grassley of spouting misinformation about Hunter Biden and some other things as that. And so Senator Johnson mentioned in this diatribe that he was doing, he said, look, you are saying all this about it, Senator Peters, but we talked about Hunter Biden, and it's been proven that he was under investigation. It was not Russian misinformation. And we also proved all these other things that you're trying to say is Russian misinformation. Even this issue that they had back with President Trump's supposed impeachment, when Joe Biden was the quid pro quo man, and there was no evidence found of any quid pro quo regarding President Donald J. Trump, nor was there any Russian collusion going on. They tried to hold that up and a lot of other things. There's a lot of people in the Democrat Party's pocket. One of them was A.G. Barr, which is now gone. He left for a reason, people. He left because the Democrat Party had something on him that they were not going to release if he agreed to drop the investigation or either leave the investigation up for the next person coming in line. Well, you know, I could go on for a while, but I'm not going to go on for a while. But there's one other thing I want to address, and I addressed this earlier during this program. Christians, this is to Christians in this nation, Christian people, as well as the Jewish people and all the other religious groups here in this country. We are under attack by the Democrat Party. They don't want you to have freedom of religion. They don't want you to be able to serve who you want to serve spiritually. They want to stop it. As I said earlier, the secular Democrats, they want to get rid of "In God We Trust." Who do you trust in? I don't know about you, but I trust in God. But I'm telling you, surely we need to be active. We need to be participating in the things that are going on in this country, because if we don't, we're going to look up one day and it's going to be a socialist nation and the Democrats will be in charge. So I'm urging everyone, before I end, to go out and vote for Kelly Loeffler in Georgia and Mr. David Perdue, so that we can maintain control of the U.S. Senate. If you want us to maintain control of the U.S. Senate, and at least if they happen to let Joe Biden go on, we'll have a better control of this nation. If both houses are surrendered to the Democrat, then welcome to Russia. Welcome to communist land, because that's exactly what's going to happen. Well, I want to thank you for joining us here on the Black Conservative Voice. I want to once again thank our guest, Bryan Leib. It's been really, it was great speaking with him. As I've spoken before, I'm a descendant of the Jewish people as well. But I do thank him for joining us here. And before I go, I want to say what I always like to say. I want to say God bless you, God bless America, and God bless the world. Until next time, this is David Colbert saying good night and God bless.